As women, it's of utmost important that we know our body anatomy, and that's why I'm going to be talking about the female reproductive system anatomy. So I want to get you familiar with your reproductive system as a woman. Hi guys, and welcome back to Truthfully Toyosi. So if you're part of our YouTube family, then you already know that I'm a medical doctor and also a teen mom. And on this channel, I teach you about your body so you can learn medicine from the comfort of your room. If that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and smash the subscribe button right now. So as women, it's of utmost important that we know our body anatomy. And that's why I'm going to be talking about the female reproductive system anatomy. So I want to get you familiar with your reproductive system as a woman. So because it can be a little bit complex, we're going to be doing this using audiovisual learning. So we're going to be using pictures and videos to explain this in details. So the female reproductive system is broadly divided into two parts. You have the external female genital organ and the internal female genital organs. So let's get into it in details. So the female external genital organ comprises of the vulva. I've had patients come to me and say, "Doctor, my vagina is itchy and I can see some redness." And immediately I know that they are not very familiar with their reproductive parts. And after watching this video, you'll know exactly why. And the female internal genital organs are divided into the vagina, the cervix, the uterus, the fallopian tubes, and also the ovaries. Let's start with the external genital organ. Talking about the vulva now. Okay guys, so let's get into it. So in the course of this video, we're going to be using some pictures, some real-time pictures, videos also to explain better. So this is what the external female genitalia looks like. This is what the vulva looks like. So let's see the parts. Just above it here, you have the pubic region, which is the hairy part and the bony prominence just below your tummy when you lie down. Then below it here, you have your clitoris. Just below it, you also have your bladder opening known as urethra. So this is where you urinate from. Your bladder is connected to this little hole to help you urinate. Below the urethra, you have the vaginal opening, as you can see here. And just below that, you have these two flower-like shaped organs known as the Bartholin's gland. So these help to secrete some mucus to keep the vagina lubricated. And then just beside it, the inner flap, you have the labia minora, and the outer part you have the labia majora. So that's about it, and this is just another diagram to explain it better. Now let's talk about the internal female genitalia. Alright, so this is what the internal female genitalia looks like. But for now, we're going to be concentrating on the vagina. So the vagina is a muscular tube that you can see from here. It extends from the lower part of the labia minus to the external os. So it's about 7 to 9 centimeters in length. It's tubular, and inside of it you can see some rough edges. These are known as rugae. So this is what enables the vagina to expand during childbirth. So once childbirth is done, it goes back to its normal size. And now we're looking at the cervix. The cervix is also known as the neck of the womb. It's a connecting tube that connects the uterus to the vagina. So the normal cervix is about 3 to 4 centimeters in length. The cervix is very important, especially when it comes to supporting pregnancy till term, because if the cervix is not working properly, or if it's not functioning properly, the individual will have recurrent miscarriages. So this is what the cervix looks like, especially when you're looking from down below. So this is the cervix of someone that has not given birth before. This cervix, you can see this little hole here, looks like a pinhole. So this is to show that nothing has passed through this cervix. No baby has passed through. If it's the cervix of someone that has delivered before, it's going to be more of a slit than a pinhole. So this is the cervix of a woman that has not given birth before. So we're going to be looking at the cervix of someone that has given birth now. So this is the cervix of someone that has given birth before. You can see that the orifice, that's the hole, is more like a slit instead of a pinhole. That's to show that a baby has passed through the cervix before. So if a woman is in labor and they're doing an examination, a vaginal examination, you're actually checking to see the cervix. So I mentioned earlier that the cervix is about 3 to 4 centimeters in length. That's a normal cervix. But some women have short cervix, and that cervix is very important to help you carry your pregnancy up until term when you deliver. So if the cervix is short, the woman can have recurrent miscarriages because it's like having a thick door and a thin door. Which one will be easier to break through? Of course, it will be the thin door. So for women with short cervix, there are lots of things that you can do to help carry the pregnancy to term. This is a picture showing a woman with a normal cervix, and the second picture is a woman with a short cervix. So for people with short cervix, there's a procedure called cervical cerclage, which is when the doctor puts some stitches in the cervix until when it's time to deliver, and then those stitches are removed. This helps to hold the cervix in place to support it till delivery. So when doing a vaginal examination for a pregnant woman, this is what you're looking at for. You're looking at for the expansion of the cervix. So now it's at 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, and it goes on till it gets to 10 centimeters. So that's why it's very important to listen to your midwife or your doctor. When they tell you that it's not time to push yet, please adhere to it, because that means that the cervix is not fully dilated. That means that it's not 10 centimeters yet. And if a woman pushes against a cervix that is not well dilated, it can cause cervical tear, which can cause massive bleeding, and it can be very fatal. So this is at 10 centimeters now. Now this video is an image showing how the cervix expands, or how the cervix opens up when it's time to deliver. You can see the cervix opening gradually, and it does this till it gets to 10 centimeters. And when it gets to 10 centimeters, it means it's time for the show to go down. It's time to push. So if you're learning from this video and you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to give it a like and then subscribe to this channel for more content like this. And if you know someone who might benefit from this video, don't hesitate to share it with them. Third part we'll be talking about now is the uterus, which is also known as the womb. Alright guys, so let's talk about the uterus. The uterus is a pear-shaped organ that is very muscular. You can see it here just above the cervix. So the uterus is divided into 3 parts. You have the outer perimetrium, that's what's called the perimetrium. Then you have the middle layer, which is the muscular layer known as the myometrium. And then you have the innermost layer, which is just rough edges that you can see just lining the innermost part, known as the endometrium. So the endometrium is very important because that's where all the magic happens. So this endometrium is what is being shed off during menstruation. So before menstruation, you ovulate, you release an egg. And when you release an egg and the egg is not fertilized, it comes out and tells the body that, okay, there's no baby growing here, so let's shed the endometrium. So the endometrium begins to break down and then comes through the cervix and comes through the vagina and comes out as bleeding. So let's see a picture of a uterus. So this is what an actual uterus looks like. So this is the uterus and these are the fallopian tube just beside it. So this uterus is very important because for females that have uterus, I can't believe I'm saying this in this age and time, but for females that have uterus, they are prone to having fibroid. So fibroid is not a cancer, but it's just an abnormal growth in the uterus, but it can also develop to become a cancer. So the fibroid can develop in different part of the uterus. And remember, earlier I said the uterus is divided into 3 parts. You have the outermost part called the perimetrium, the middle layer called the myometrium, and the innermost layer called the endometrium. So the fibroid can develop in any of these 3 parts. So this is a picture of a uterus that has fibroid. So you can see the fibroids in several parts of it. This one now here is the one in the middle layer. That's the fibroid located in the myometrium. And you can also see some hanging into the uterus. So depending on the location and size of the uterus, the treatment of a fibroid will differ. Okay, so for those that have fibroids in their endometrium, that's the innermost lining of the uterus, they can present with heavy menstrual bleeding because this is one of the things that happens during menstruation for women that have fibroids. Alright, so let's talk about how menstruation works. So I mentioned earlier that when you ovulate, you release an egg. And once you release an egg, when the egg doesn't get fertilized, it tells the body that, okay, there's no baby growing in this uterus. So let's wash out the endometrium so that we can restart a new cycle. So that's exactly what happens. So you can see this part of the endometrium especially the rough edges. There are lots of blood vessels there. This rough edges here, there are lots of blood vessels there. So what happens is the endometrium breaks down and then it comes out through the cervix and through the vagina. This is an illustration to show you exactly what happens during menstruation. Let's make it a bit slower so you'll be able to understand. So this is the innermost lining, like we explained, with lots of blood vessels. So what it does is it breaks down and then it comes out through the cervix and through the vagina. It comes out as your menstrual flow. So that's exactly what happens during menstruation. The fourth ones we'll be talking about are the fallopian tube. You have two fallopian tubes attached to both sides of the uterus. And finally, the ovaries. Like the fallopian tubes, you have a pair of ovaries, two on both sides. Okay guys, now let's talk about the fallopian tubes and the ovaries. So you have a pair of fallopian tubes on both sides, and then you have a pair of ovaries each on both sides also. So this is the fallopian tube and you have it on the right side also. And same thing for the ovaries too. You have a pair, one on each side. So that's it. Now let's look at a more detailed picture. So this is a fallopian tube. So this is the tube extending down to this end where you have the rough edges that looks like a broomstick. This is known as the fimbrial end. So this helps to sweep the egg into the tube because the egg is released from the ovary down here. So once it's released, the fimbrial end sweeps it into the fallopian tube. All right, so this is how it happens. You can see the egg released here and is swept by the fimbrial into the fallopian tube. And you can see some sperm cells here trying to fertilize the egg. So the sperm cells have come up from the vagina, through the cervix, through the uterus, and some all the way to the fallopian tube. So fertilization normally takes place in the fallopian tube, an area in the fallopian tube called the ampulla. So once the egg gets fertilized, it then travels down the fallopian tube to the uterus where it's going to be implanted, and then it begins to grow bigger. So that's just the physiology of the fallopian tube and the ovaries. So that's what happens. Egg is released. The egg gets fertilized in the fallopian tube, the ampulla region. Then the egg travels down to the uterus for implantation. But sometimes it can happen that the egg will get fertilized in the fallopian tube, which is the normal area where it's supposed to be fertilized, but then it doesn't travel down to the uterus to get implanted and for it to grow. So in that case, we'll call that an ectopic pregnancy. Now, the fallopian tube was not designed to accommodate a growing baby. So when you have an ectopic pregnancy, it can be very, very deadly, because if the egg is fertilized in the fallopian tube and the baby begins to grow in that fallopian tube, if it grows to a size where the fallopian tube ruptures, it can cause massive hemorrhage. That's massive internal bleeding. And if the patient is not operated on as soon as possible, it can be very, very deadly. Okay, this is an illustration of what we've been talking about. You can see the ovary down here and then the fallopian tube, and in the fallopian tube you can see a growing egg. So that means that fertilization had occurred in the fallopian tube, which was normal, but the fertilized egg did not travel down to the uterus. So it stayed in the fallopian tube and it continued growing. So if it grows to a stage where it ruptures the fallopian tube, can be very deadly. This is another picture depicting what an ectopic looks like. You can see the uterus here, and on the right side you can see the fallopian tube, which is normal, and on the left side the fallopian tube is a little bit swollen here, which shows that something is happening here. So the fertilized egg had remained here and started growing. Now, depending on the size of the ectopic and whether the tube is ruptured or not, the treatment can differ. So sometimes it could be some medication that will be given, especially when it has not ruptured. But if it has ruptured, it's definitely a surgical emergency. So now let's talk about tubal ligation. You can hear, I'm sure you've heard some people say that, oh, I've tied my tube. So that's a form of contraception, tying your tube, but there are different types of tubal ligation. So let's explore them here. The first one is the band or the clipped type. So here you can just use a suture to tie the tube or a clip to clip the ends of the tube, and once this is done, That means that egg will not be able to travel down to the uterus, and sperm cells will not be able to travel up the fallopian tube for fertilization to occur. So that's a way of contraception. You also have the tied or the cut type. Here, two ends of the fallopian tubes are tied and then cut in between. So, and then you have the cauterized type also. So you cut the fallopian tube and you use heat to burn the ends of the tube. So sometimes tubal ligation could be reversible, and in this case the band or the clipped type will be the only type that will be reversible. So this is another picture showing how tubal ligation, showing a picture of tubal ligation. So this is the band or this is the band or the clipped type. You can see the suture tied, and here this is likely the cauterized type, because you can see that it has been cut here and both edges have been burnt and they are okay. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. You've been able to learn one or two things from this video. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you want to keep learning medicine from the comfort of your room. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.